Tadi ramai kata, oh YB, you sudah kurus. I feel like I will slap you because I actually just put 7 kg since March. I was actually a lot slimmer than this just about 4 months ago. And this is what politics do to you. So kalau 4 bulan saya macam ni, kalau pilihan raya setahun lagi, I hope. So, the one thing that every day I have to come to terms that we have to do this. Kan? Jadi ada 4-5 tahun yang lepas yang tiap-tiap hari, tiap-tiap minggu orang tanya kenapa you move on from politik. There's a reason why I think some of us wanted to move on. Sebab dalam politik kalau kita tidak rasuah dan kita mahu berkhidmat dengan jujur, politik doesn't pay.
Salam.
It's one of the worst jobs in the world actually. Sebab gaji dah lah sikit. Kalau nak buat duit, sama ada kerja dekat korporat, jadi CEO, CFO ataupun buat perniagaan, you make a lot more money in business. In politics, if you are honest, most probably the most you will make is about 26,000, 30,000. Okay, to some people, that may sound a lot. But imagine if every day someone comes to your office and say, I can't pay for my electricity.
Itu suara Rafizi tak dengar sangat lah kan, tapi
everywhere you go, someone will have problem.
Sekarang
you have to fork out 1,000, 2,000.
Rafizi Ramli kat belakang.
That if you're honest, most probably
Boleh nampak kan? Okay.
you will have a negative net pay by end of the month. That's not the worst part. The worst part is this. No matter how sincere or how hardworking you think you are, chances are half of the people will curse you. Oh, YB tak guna lah, you selalu tak datang lah. Saya punya anak berkahwin, you tak datang lah. Ini saya sakit, you tak jenguk lah.
Oh, dengan jelas Okay.
I've gone through that life, you know. I was an MP for a full term. I spent close to 10 years campaigning. And I tell myself and I told my family, I would never want to do it again. It doesn't pay. So I had 4 years of really peaceful life running my own tech startup. For the first time, I actually had some time to lose weight. And I did lose weight. So I hope you can forgive me if kalau tahun 2019, 2020, 2021 orang tanya why I shut down. To me, I've done my job. It's someone else's job now, and I never planned to be politician anyway. The problem is, I think we don't live in a bubble. Kan? Jadi walaupun I had a good middle class life, walaupun saya boleh okay, saya ingat satu benda yang saya belajar daripada kecil, iaitu we may have an option but others do not have the option that we have. And if you have a capacity to help others when you already have an option and to try to create options for other people, that is the highest level of service and ibadah. And day by day, of course, saya pergi makan ke, saya dekat luar. Tiap-tiap bulan saya interview orang yang nak start kerja. I do understand how things have gone from bad to worse. I could shut everything, I could live in a bubble, but I was also affected because I run a big business. So I know how bad things are outside because, if you run a business, the economy is bad, you are affected. And it came to one point, in state Johor election, that if we don't change the trajectory of how things have become, 2, 3, 4 years from now, we will end up with no options that is viable to become a government. On the one hand, you will have UMNO and Barisan Nasional, practically, a Malay right-wing party. The second option will be Bersatu PAS, another Malay right-wing party. Now, to the younger ones, you may not remember this because your political awakening most probably in the last 10, 15 years, in the last 5 years, where you grow up having an option. If you wanted a multiracial, progressive, honest, competent government, you could always try to support Pakatan Harapan. If you want to settle for a right-wing party, especially for those who are non-Malays, you could always go for UMNO Barisan Nasional. That's the politics that you know. Because you didn't live in the 1980s. You didn't grow up in those 1980s and 1990s that I grew up at your age. I am quite old, I'm 45. So I remember those years when kalau Melayu dahulu, kalau pilihan yang kita ada hanya ada UMNO ataupun PAS. UMNO pun you tak suka, PAS pun you tak suka. In the 80s and 90s, orang Melayu hanya ada pilihan UMNO ataupun PAS. That's why when PKR started, a lot of my generation, Izzah, Nika, Nick Nazmi, we all joined PKR in drove because at least for once, we had a choice. So you knew politics when you had an option. Imagine if things had not improved, you will end up with either UMNO and Barisan Nasional on the one hand, and Bersatu and PAS on the other hand. Because if PKR, DAP, Amanah dan Pakatan Harapan telah menjadi blok ketiga yang kalau macam mana pun undi pun takkan menang, maka pengundi atas pagar yang lain hanya akan memilih antara UMNO Barisan Nasional ataupun Perikatan Nasional. That was the time when I realized that, kalau perkara itu berlaku, saya akan kena sumpah berkarung-karung dengan rakyat Malaysia. So daripada orang berharap supaya kita balik dan membantu, kalau perkara itu berlaku, orang akan mula sumpah dan maki saya kerana tidak membantu pada ketika yang sepatutnya. So ladies and gentlemen, here I am. And it's important to understand this. Saya, Izzah, Likan, Ninazmi, Akmal, Cincong, Mani, kita duduk sekali dan kita faham bahawa this is not going to be a smooth ride. Pakatan Harapan telah kalah 4 pilihan raya negeri berturut-turut. Bukan kalah, sayur, bungkus. Kalau ia pun kalah, janganlah bungkus. Ini bungkus dalam 4 pilihan raya negeri berturut-turut. Kita berhadapan dengan pengundi atas pagar yang akan tanya kita, dulu masa kamu kempen dan bagi kita menang sehingga 2018, where were you then? Kenapa kamu biarkan Pakatan Harapan pada ketika itu dikawal oleh Bersatu sehingga Bersatu boleh merosakkan Pakatan Harapan dan pengundi-pengundi atas pagar benci dengan Pakatan Harapan? It's not going to be an easy job. I understand that. Sebab itu juga kami memutuskan bahawa kita tidak boleh masuk pilihan raya ini dan berkempen dengan rakyat semata-mata atas niat untuk menang pilihan raya. We've done that before. If we were to appeal to the public on the sole reason that vote for us and things are going to be better, by now we know most probably it will take much longer before things can get better. Because the problem is a lot deeper. The problem is very systemic in nature. The problem requires not just an overhaul of the political system, it requires a change of mindset in every single one of us. That's why we decided that let's change the tactic. Kita sekarang berdepan dengan generasi yang kita pun tak faham. Sebab mereka terlalu muda. Bayangkan, generasi sekarang besar kemungkinan tidak pernah tengok typewriter. Cuba tanya dia typewriter macam mana. All their life, everything is about screen, everything is about internet, it's about Facebook, it's about apps. We are dealing with a generation that I don't understand, let alone people older than me don't understand. But it's not just a generational gap. What is more important is masalah-masalah yang mereka hadapi setiap hari sangatlah berbeza dengan masalah-masalah yang kita pernah hadapi dahulu. Masalah mereka sangat mencabar. Kehidupan mereka lebih susah daripada kita. Kalau dahulu keluar universiti, insya-Allah you'll be fine. You'll be able to own a house. Paling kurang akan boleh ada rumah, boleh ada kereta. Most probably you'll be able to afford your children's education. Almost guaranteed. Kalau dulu keluar universiti, besar kemungkinan tidak adalah hutang sampai ke mati. Sekarang keluar universiti, hutang dia tak boleh bayar lagi, dia kena ambil hutang untuk bayar anak dia. So it's a completely different generation and different problems. Kita berdepan dengan satu generasi yang mak ayah dia akan ambil wang, simpan wang untuk hantar anak tuition. Sebab semua orang nak dapat keputusan baik. Dengan keputusan baik, dapat pergi sekolah baik. Dengan sekolah baik, dapat peperiksaan baik, dapat beasiswa, dapat masuk universiti, pergi luar negara semua. Balik-balik jadi Grab driver. And this is real. Every day. There are thousands and thousands every day out there yang getting very disillusioned with even education. We are facing a generation which at one point in the future will tell their children, there's no point for you to go for higher education because look at what happened to me. I went for higher education, I got a good degree, but in the end I have to survive on my own. I have to do 3 or 4 jobs. Education no longer pays. That's the reason, ladies and gentlemen, I decided to come back and pick up the gauntlet again. It is one thing to have stupid ministers, okay? And we have been quite immune with stupid ministers. One after another, after a while, you kind of get used to it. It is completely a different thing and extremely dangerous when the incompetence, the stupidity, the lack of foresight will punish one whole future generation who will lose complete faith in education. So I think kita kena ingat bahawa bila kita bersedia untuk berkempen sekarang, itu bukan bermakna kerana kita mahukan semata-mata parti yang kita sokong menang. We've made that mistake before. Kita ingat kita sokong parti yang kita suka menang, dia akan selesaikan masalah kita. It did not happen. So when we start now, again, we must start on the right footing. Bahawa bila kita mula bergerak, berkempen, ia lebih besar daripada untuk menang pilihan raya. Ia untuk kita pastikan bahawa anak kita, adik kita, generasi kita, kalaupun tidak boleh lebih baik daripada kita,
at least they can afford the kind of life that we have now. They deserve at least the life that we have now, if not better. Because what's happening now, we are condemning them to a future of no hope whatsoever. Sebab itu, kalau saudara-saudari tengok, kita kurang berminat sangat semata-mata untuk tunjukkan bahawa UMNO Barisan Nasional salah. People actually know that. And that's sometimes why I feel I have disagreements with my colleagues in Pakatan Harapan. Because I think it is quite condescending to have an attitude that we are right and if you don't vote for us, you are bad. I don't think we can have that anymore. People understand that UMNO Barisan Nasional is bad. People know Perikatan Nasional is bad. But the public expects much better from politicians, and if Pakatan Harapan aspire to be a good government, we must rise up to the expectation of the public and don't expect public to just vote for us because we think that we are better than UMNO or something. We need to prove that we know what we have to do if we take over government. We need to have plans. We need to understand that things are a lot more difficult now than before. We need to relate. We need to show competent people. It's not enough to show a few selfies here and there and show that we are better than UMNO Barisan Nasional. We need to show that we will be able to make things better. And you can't fault the public if they expect you to do better. Sebab itu, we hope through Ayuh Malaysia, we will be able to pivot the national political discourse from saya lebih baik daripada awak korak, saya tak korak, dalam parlimen sana jerit, sini jerit. You don't know how it feels to be stuck in parliament seeing these monkeys screaming. I don't know how Akmal Izzah survive. I have to admit, dulu masa saya jadi ahli parlimen, rekod jam saya dekat parlimen kurang baik. Paling lama 3-4 jam. But please don't blame me, I was like in a zoo. I can't. Sana jerit, sini jerit. So, that's not good enough. Sebab itu, let's start on a good footing. Kita mulakan dengan perkara yang paling penting. Kalau kita nak selesaikan masalah, kita kena tahu apa punca masalah. Let's start with the root cause. Of course lah, semua orang tahu lah. Kalau root cause kat sini ialah menteri sana, ini, bla 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 bla, macam-macam. But if we were to pick 4 or 5 most important sectors, issues that we have to resolve in order to make sure that our children, our sisters will get a better life, what are those 4 or 5? And that's why we decided, let's just focus on 5 things. First, saudara-saudari, kami mula bercakap tentang food security ataupun jaminan makanan seawal Februari dan Mac 2022, sebelum pun ada masalah harga ayam, masalah harga telur semua. Pada ketika itu pun kita dah tahu bahawa negara akan berhadapan dengan masalah harga barang dan gangguan bekalan makanan yang mendadak. That's why we announced it much earlier on that one greatest threat to this country and society in the future is the question of food security. But it's not enough to just point out. In the coming weeks, in the coming months, hopefully even after the next general election, whatever the result is, I hope kawan-kawan yang bersama-sama saya dengan Ayuh Malaysia, yang mendengar, yang menjadi sukarelawan, rakyat di luar faham bahawa we need to focus on food security because that is our survival. We can talk until the cows go, well, cows, Sharizat and so on.
I have that mental. The kids look at cows, I have to stop. We can talk until Sharizat goes home. And we've been talking about it, but we will not solve it. People know that we need to do something about food security. So we'll focus on the solutions, and it is our duty to get everyone to understand how important it is for the country to do something creatively, innovatively about food security. Secondly, is about making sure a free and fair access to education for all. Quality education, free and fair to all. And we are lucky because before this, every time we talk about free and fair access to quality education, people will talk about budgets. UMNO Barisan Nasional will say that Malaysia has among the highest percentage per national budget every year for education. And they will tell you, mahal nak buat sekolah ni. Kalau nak buat sekolah macam ni, macam tu, mahal. Mana tak mahalnya, nak pasang elektrik, kena cari rosmah. Lain kali cari kontraktor, tengok kontraktor betul-betul state, salah kontraktor. But now we are lucky because we are in the technology world. The tech has advanced so much, but it requires a lot of focus to digitalize education. Unless we bring digital features, unless we bring digitization into education, we will not be able to do it. And it requires a lot more than just talking about free and fair access. It requires us to convince the whole country that we need to digitize education, because only through digitization of education, then when you make sure that the 5G, the access goes to every corner of this country, you just focus on the content. And that's how, hopefully, you can create quality education by focusing centrally on quality content and spending less on infrastructure. For every $1 that you used to spend on brick and mortar building, that $1 is better spent on better content that can be delivered a lot cheaper to more people around the country. The third thing is about housing. Well, I don't have to explain about housing. Housing kat Malaysia ni memang berapa orang yang mampu untuk membeli rumah selepas 5 tahun dia bekerja. If you look at the mortgage, if you look at the price, kalau di bandar-bandar yang besar kemungkinan anak-anak kita akan terus kekal duduk dengan kita. So, saya tengok contohnya staff saya yang bekerja, banyak yang muda-muda kan. Hampir semua duduk dengan mak bapak dia. Nasib baik mak bapak dia baik. So, they can't afford to stay on their own. They have to stay with their parents, kan? So, kalau ini akan berterusan sehinggalah kita betul-betul selesaikan macam mana nak uruskan soal perumahan. The funny thing is this, we all have Netflix, we all watch dekat Astro lah semua. Among the things that I like most is basically tengok cerita HGTV, tengok all this DIY. All it takes is just some imagination, innovation, but a lot of push from society and from government, because we can only cut down the cost for construction, the cost for housing, if we go mass scale using industrialized building system, if we use technology to modular construction. And you can't expect little construction companies to do this. The government has to create a demand for it first. If tomorrow the government says that from 2023, all schools and hospitals and government buildings will be built using IBS and modular,
automatically you will create a huge demand for this. And when there is a huge demand, then you can lower down the cost. When you lower down the cost, you have economies of scale. When you have the economies of scale, most probably you no longer require a lot of foreign workers dan sebagainya. How do we know this? Because that's how China did it. How do we know this? That's how everyone else did it. So I asked someone, a friend who is a CEO in a huge construction company, I said, why is it you guys not doing this? They said, well, you know, there's no economies of scale. So saya tanya dah, kalau modular dekat Malaysia ni, kalau IBS, dekat mana nak pergi beli? Ada ke tidak? Dia kata ada banyak kilang banyak dekat Johor. Tapi kenapa Johor tak pakai? Oh ya, dia orang buat kat Johor, tapi Singapore yang beli. Wow, sounds familiar, that's Malaysia, okay? So it's doable. Singapore is doing it, China is doing it, Europe is doing it. So there is a solution to providing affordable housing to people, but it just requires some brain lah. Fikirlah sikit, you know. You leave it to them, to menteri-menteri yang ada dekat Putrajaya ni, dia akan buat lepas ni. Lepas kita bising-bising pasal harga ayam semua, dia umum jawatan kuasa kan. Dia umum jawatan kuasa jihad harga barang. Lepas ini, kita bising pasal harga rumah IBS modular, dia akan buat satu lagi jawatan kuasa. There's no price for guessing. Dia akan buat jawatan kuasa jihad harga rumah pula. So you can't expect they will do this. That's why it requires every single one of us, rakyat biasa, to imagine the future for them. Kalau rakyat kata, actually it's a good idea to do it. We want to see a mass scale IBS and modular. We want to see the capacity for it so that we can lower construction costs. Then hopefully politicians have no choice but to do it. Fourth things that we talk about through Ayuh Malaysia is about reimagining the future of jobs in this country. Kita cakap pasal TVET, kita cakap pasal unemployed graduates. I don't have to explain this. You go through this every day. What we require is solution. Setiap kali kita cerita pasal unemployment, kerajaan cakap apa tau? Ya, kita faham lepas ini kita perlukan lebih ramai anak-anak yang berkemahiran. And then what do? They send them to vocational or technical school. More schools created. Not because those schools when created will produce employable school leavers. That's because more schools means more construction, means more contract. But these people, bila dia keluar, katakanlah dia keluar sekolah vocational, dia diajar bertukang sana lah, baiki enjin di sini lah. You know, when they go out there, construction semua pakai pekerja asing. Takkan kita nak suruh dia angkut bata, pasang bata semua. I mean, foreign workers come and they were willing to live in kongsi semua so that they make money and they go back to their country. Fair. You know, after all, you know, some of us have worked overseas one way or another. So, you know, it was temporary. We didn't mind living that life because it is about making money so that we can go back. But you can't expect our children to do it because we have progressed as a country. And when we have progress as a country, there is a certain level of living standard. Takkan kita nak suruh anak-anak kita lepas dia pergi ke sekolah vocational, tak apalah nak, lepas ni kau pergi angkat bata, pasang bata sekali dengan orang Indonesia dan juga Bangladesh. They won't do it. And you can't blame them. We would have failed them if we send them to school and vocational college only for them to go out and do that. So how are we going to address that? That's why kita perlukan supaya, kalau seperti saya sebut tadi, we put more technology, we put more future into the way we do things. If you have more IBS if you industrialize our construction, for example, sebenarnya kita hanya perlukan technician yang boleh pasang rumah, bukan bina rumah. Because most probably when kita nak buat rumah, kita order, dia macam IKEA lah, tapi tak ada kecil, IKEA besar. Mana yang you most probably would bolt and put the foundation dulu, and then it comes as satu block dinding, you pasang block dinding, you pasang atas. And this requires a lot of machines and tooling. It's no longer labor work untuk pasang plaster, cement dan sebagainya. When you do that, you will require less number of labor hours to finish one house. When you require less labor, that means that you can pay more. With machine, with tools, with equipment, you can do the same amount of work with less people and you can pay them more. The nitty-gritty, that's why we have to talk about it. But we need to imagine and we need to sell the idea to the people and to the public supaya dia faham bahawa sebenarnya that's how we should do it. So you kill two birds with one stone. You tak payah bergantung kepada pekerja asing. Pada masa yang sama, kita bagi pekerjaan kepada yang muda-muda yang tidak pergi universiti, yang ada technical, supaya kita dapat pastikan mereka juga boleh ada kerjaya yang they can make a living out of it. Dan yang kelima, saudara-saudari, the 5 class that we say, we talk about renewable energy. Yang ini agak mudah. Sekarang semua orang negara panas. Climate change, everything. Bill elektrik, saya duduk a normal apartment with 3 bedrooms. 3 orang je. Bill elektrik saya lebih kurang RM500 sebulan. So if you have 2-story house ke berapa, you are looking at about 500, 400 ringgit a month. If you have solar, as an idea, if you have solar, you have to fork out awal the capital to install solar. That's fine. But you will get your capital paid back within 5 to 6 years. Once you get your capital paid back within 5 to 6 years, your electricity is free. That's not that's a no-brainer. Why not to do it? Our weather allows it, but it takes a lot of government push to do it. Kalau kita pergi dekat pejabat-pejabat kerajaan, saudara-saudara tengok tak, lampu banyak gila lah. Lampu di sana sini, ada yang menyala lah, ada yang tak menyala. Tapi selalunya pejabat-pejabat kerajaan, tempat-tempat awam, bangunan besar, lampu banyak. Let me ask you this, you ingat electricity itu percuma ke? Pakcik-makcik ingat electricity itu tiap-tiap bulan sebab dia kerajaan, dia tak payah bayar. Tiap-tiap tahun bila kerajaan peruntukkan belanjawan kepada kementerian sekian, sebahagian itu dia jadi belanja mengurus operational expenditure. Operational expenditure itu maksudnya apa? Bayar elektrik. Danlah kena bayar elektrik mahal. Bila tengok pula lampu, saudara-saudari perasan tak? Banyak lampu tu bukan LED pun. Lampu biasa. Sedangkan kalau kita pakai LED, tenaga electricity adalah hanya 1/3. You consume 1/3. If you use LED, why not use LED? So you imagine the kind of savings we can slash if only we have slightly more of a futuristic mind. But when even government ministers couldn't think about it, dia masuk setiap hari lampu semua, dia tak peduli. Dia tengok bil elektrik, bajet dia kena tolak, dia tak peduli. Bila dia pun tak peduli, negara pun tak peduli. Tapi bayangkan, kalau katakanlah satu rumah RM400 sebulan electricity, lepas 5-6 tahun, dia dah fully recover investment dia, dia jimat tak payah bayar electricity RM400 sebulan, RM300 sebulan. Saudara-saudari, kalau yang Melayu yang terima BRIM dekat, sekarang dia panggil apa? Macam BRIM ni zaman aja. Sekarang apa? Bantuan Keluarga Malaysia. Dia bagi RM100 je kan, dia umum baru ni kan, RM100 setahun. Kalau kita berjaya, pastikan seberapa banyak tenaga elektrik di rumah-rumah, di tempat awam bertukar kepada solar dan kerajaan berubah sepenuhnya ke arah menggunakan solar. Setiap rumah selepas dia dah dapat penuh pelaburan balik dia yang dia pasang solar, tiap-tiap rumah kita boleh bagi dia beri RM400 sebulan, tak payah buat apa sebab dia tak payah bayar. We save RM400 a month from their outlay because they don't have to pay electricity anymore. It's no-brainer. Dia dapat dia didn't have break lah sometimes kan. That's a problem kan. So I don't understand. Saya tak faham. It's not that difficult. That's why, okay, in my last 6-7 minutes, then let me ask. Pandangan saya, if we focus on all these 5 fronts, 5 things, only 5 things, we bring it to the people, orang faham, dia akan tuntut dan dia akan tanya ahli-ahli politik. Hopefully, we will be able to pivot national discourse back to policy, back to future, back to, masa depan anak-anak kita. We can do that. You may ask this question, habis kenapa diorang tak libat? What's the problem? Because when you put politicians yang masuk ambil jawatan only for themselves, they went in without single plan, they went in without thinking how their incompetencies will affect other people. Dia tak berminat pun untuk menyelesaikan masalah air. Keadaan sekarang lagi teruk. Sebab kita mungkin tidak akan ada lagi kerajaan yang kekal lama sampai 10 tahun, 15 tahun. Jadi setiap menteri masuk tu dia kira, okey, aku tinggal lebih kurang 80 hari je. Aku ada 3 tahun saja lagi. Bayangkan kalau jadi Ismail Sabri sekarang. Dia masih lagi Perdana Menteri yang paling pendek, paling singkat berkuasa. You bayangkan, dia baru je nak pakai baju Burberry. Baru ada satu baju. Ni orang suruh tak ada hari, suruh tukar Perdana Menteri, bagilah dia ada 5-6 dulu. Let him have some fashion sense. So bayangkan kalau kita ada menteri macam ni, dia fikir aku ada setahun dah, aku ada 2 tahun dah. Jadi dia tak fikir masalah-masalah that requires a total overhaul, a futuristic view about how to do things. Dia fikir berapa banyak kontrak aku boleh sign dalam masa 5 bulan. That's why it cannot be done. It's not that it's difficult. It's not like you require ideally brain to do it. It can be done. After all, if you look at China and you study Deng Xiaoping, when Deng Xiaoping did it in the 70s and 80s, tak ada lah Deng Xiaoping pergi Stanford ke Ivy ke. Deng Xiaoping punya formal education sampai 11 tahun dekat French. The rest, he was a guerrilla war. It requires just common sense. But the execution requires honest politicians. To make it work, we need patriots. We need people who want to do it out of national service, who want to do it because they have already achieved other things in life. This is what they can contribute. And for that to happen, ladies and gentlemen, we can't allow the politicians to decide for themselves. Because remember, I kept telling you this 4 or 5 years ago, sometimes you guys forward balik my speech when I was fat, at least now I'm a lot slimmer lah than all those speeches. Remember my last speech for general election, power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely. If you leave it to them, you put anyone without a control, without a check and balance, without scrutiny, even the nicest and most honest politicians, when they started in politics, there's every risk that they'll be corrupt as well.
After all, every bad thing in this world starts with a good intention. That's why we require Malaysians to get involved. Kita perlukan rakyat Malaysia untuk terus terlibat, bantu, jadi kaki pukul, rotan ahli politik, tekan ahli politik. Kalaupun Pakatan Harapan menang, still kena buat. Kritik mereka, pastikan mereka ada satu tahap otak yang baik. Jangan kalau ahli politik yang kurang cerdik itu daripada Pakatan Harapan, kita buat diam. If they are not smart, even if they are from Pakatan Harapan, you better whack them. That's the only way. Dengan cara itu kita boleh pastikan bahawa tahap standard ahli politik kita kekal baik. Put them on a leash all the time. And only then, hopefully, we can see progress months after months, years after years. People will come and go. I know tadi Izzah, Ning Nazmi, Akmal, Likang semua cakap, we've been telling everyone for the last 10 years, we do not need Messiah. Don't expect politicians to save you. If society thinks that we need Messiah to help us, we are in trouble. We are the Messiah, ladies and gentlemen. Kitalah yang akan mengubah, kitalah yang akan tolong fikir, kitalah yang akan tolong pukul, dan kita jugalah hopefully will reap the benefit. And that's why tonight, thank you very much. We all have to go. I want to thank everyone. And you know, there's one thing that, you know, when I left politics, I thought I wouldn't miss anything. I was very happy, very peaceful. I thought that there's nothing about politics that I will miss. Tonight I realized there was one thing that I actually miss. I miss seeing how multiracial and muhibbah everyone is. You know, I forgot that. You know, dekat one table ada Pakcik, ada Chinese, ada Indian, ada Melayu. I mean, you all fit in. All these people who fear each other should just come here and see, you know. And kita makan the most, well, I don't think it's even Malaysian food, it's Indian food, is it? We eat the most Malaysian food of it all, from Mama, you know. So, you know, thank you very much for coming. You know, I do remember why I used to enjoy doing it a bit. Thank you, because I met some of the crazy people who were volunteers before. I met one auntie from Cheras. I forgot that she must have been the oldest pacha. In the last general election, auntie jadi pacha umur 78 tahun. And she's still here. Cuma dia nak cakap dia tak boleh jadi pacha lah, dia pakai tongkat dah sekarang, tak boleh lah, you know. You know Jimmy, who has been going around and leaving everything, telling people dengan baju and so on. I met so many people whose only reason that you are here tonight is because you want this country to be better. And that's it. And that's how beautiful it is. You don't have to be a political party member. You don't need to even understand politics that much. We come together only for one thing. We don't even have to like each other. You know. We just, well, at least I'm frank as always. We love this country and we think that our children deserve better. That's all. So let's start. No matter how small it is. If it's a small thing, I know the skeptics will tell, Allah, you guys pergi makan-makan, sebang-sebang, the country will not change. We know the country will not change. But let's start small, because we know it will take much longer than what most people think. And we also know, unlike most people out there, we believe in one thing. All the great things and the good things in the world, in the beginning, were a result of the efforts of a small group of dedicated people. It was never due to a lot of people. It's always a small group of people. And to be frank, you guys are not too small anyway. We have full hall. We have about 9,000 volunteers who registered so far. So inshallah, tonight here in Jalan Pudu, those watching, kita akan jumpa di JB hari Khamis ini. InsyaAllah dalam 1-2 minggu lagi kita akan jumpa terak. Then insyaAllah by end of July, we'll start hitting the roads and we'll go to every corner in this country to experience. If election is in August, I don't think it's in August, but if election is in October, hopefully 3 to 4 months is enough to hold the fort. Whether we win or not, to me is secondary, but Pakatan must form the biggest bloc in the next parliament. Because when we are the biggest bloc, most probably anyone who wants to form a government has to talk to us. Then I hear, I go around. Kadang-kadang I feel like this is so unfair to me because semua orang cakap, make sure tidak ada pengkhianat lagi ya. I was like, no, it's not my fault. So inshallah this time around, if we are the biggest bloc, we should have the best chance to try to form a government. If election is next year, that means that most probably we have about 1 year from now to win, to prepare for election. I think it is safe to say if we have 1 year, I think we can win the next election. But 1 year lah, kalau it's 3 to 4 months, it's kind of short. Let's be realistic. Because bila you campaign, you kena pergi semua tempat. It's long time. You need to explain to people. 4 or 5 months may be short. It's maybe enough to make sure that we are the biggest bloc. But if we have 1 year, I think we might be able to win the next general election. Whether it's this October or whether it's next year, that's not our decision. That's that's Burberry man's decision. So I don't envy him. So let him decide. What we can do is we can do our best to prepare. So let's prepare. So in the next 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, we will hit the ground. Kita akan campaign dengan media sosial. We will talk. We will create more contents. We will shoot Najib more often after this. So inshallah, I think hopefully we can achieve 2 things. And this is our final deliverable with regards to the election. Number 1, we need to energize our core supporters. When I started and said that let's do a fundraising dinner within 2 weeks' time, I think my team said go to hell. Because it's nearly impossible to sell tables in 2 weeks. Tonight, we have 10,000 tables all sold out. We sold everything in a space of 2 weeks. And now, after this, we're going to get Akmal, you better make sure all the tables are sold. So the good thing is this, our first deliverable is we have to energize our core. You guys are our core. And tonight you have proven you have never left us. All it takes is just one signal and you are back. And we will go to other states, other cities and reactivate our core like we did before. And once that's done, inshallah, that's a good start. The second deliverable is we need to capture the imagination of the fence-sitters, of people who are undecided, and hopefully the more we focus on the policy issues, on the future, on what we can do so that the future is better for them,
Because I'm not that worried about that. Imagine this. Imagine Zaid Hamidi talking about solar. Let me ask you this, okay? Siapa yang paling expert sekali pasal solar panel among them? Rosmah. So imagine, we talk about solar, how we can, there come Rosmah trying to explain about solar. We will win hands down, don't worry. So I'm not too worried about that. The more we talk about, the future, what we can do, and how bright the future can be for everyone, I think UMNO will be on retreat. Because, they only have Rosmah. So, inshallah, we'll focus there. Izzah, myself, Lee Kang, Ning Azmi, Mani, Akmal, and many young ones, Chin Chong, we are determined for this, We don't plan to be politicians until forever. We actually want to lose weight. So we can only do this up to a certain time. Okay. Most, I think, I'm 45 now. The most maybe another 10, 12 years. Have mercy on us. So we will try our best to make it happen. If it's not tomorrow, minggu depan, bulan depan, if it's not next year. But I think we will work together because, we want to retire. And until this is done, I think all of you guys will hound us forever. And inshallah, if we put our minds to it and see beyond general election, I think we will be able to do the job. So finally, thank you very much. It's been an honor to be among you guys again. Remember, we will manage the campaign through an app. Okay, so download the app, join the campaign activities there. You will have full briefing on the app. You can train how to become Pacha on the app. You can register to become Pacha on the app. So try to use the app as soon as possible. Then we'll start going from state to state from next week. And hopefully, by the time we come back here, 2 or 3 months down the line, maybe we are getting closer to general election. And hopefully by then, we'll be so jubilant because we've done a good job, and inshallah we will win as best as possible whenever they call general election. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Sese, Nandri Langkau and good night.
Ayuh! 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 Yeah, before we end, let me just announce that for the fundraising that we conducted just now, we